Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Alex Rankin, and today we're speaking with a true polymath of property investment and entrepreneurship. Our guest is Josh Blackman, the CEO of Brownstone Property Group, which is a full-service real estate company offering multi-family property management, real estate brokerage, construction management and property renovations in Brooklyn, Queens and Manhattan. Josh isn't just a real estate investor. He's a licensed attorney, a real estate broker, an insurance broker and a general contractor with over 45 years of diverse business experience, having founded 6 distinct companies. He's the definition of a full-stack entrepreneur. I'm particularly excited to learn how somebody with such a deep understanding of legal, construction and operational compliance approaches property renovation. We're going to dive into how Brownstone navigates the necessary environmental regulations around waste and supply chains and how they turn that complexity into a strategic advantage for wealth creation. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
Alex, what a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Josh, you're a lawyer, an author, an insurance broker, real estate developer and a successful entrepreneur. Can you just tell us a bit about your journey and what's inspired and motivated you to get into the work you're doing today?
Well, sure. Happy to talk about myself. It's something I know a lot about. How did I get here? Good question. I've had a number of backgrounds, and I think one of the motivating factors behind serial entrepreneurship for me is learning is my favorite thing. And as long as I can keep learning things, I'm a happy camper. And part of that is I get bored fast. So I think that's led me to do a number of things in my life. I've been a computer programmer and a lawyer, and now I'm doing this. I've started a number of companies, as you mentioned. So how did I find this one? This particular business, Brownstone Property Group, based here in Brooklyn, New York, started a book, changed my life, talking about learning. So the book was Cash Flow Quadrant by Mr. Kiyosaki. And he wrote the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. And that particular book talks about that, among many things, that many people think that their home is their greatest asset, when in fact, for many people, it's their greatest burden because they spend 30 years working to pay the bank back for the privilege of living in that property. So what's the alternative to that? Buy multi-unit properties where the tenants will help pay the mortgage. So I already owned a home at that time. And so what I did is I went out with a partner at that time and we bought some multi-unit properties. I had a job at that time. I was in-house counsel at a public firm. And I realized we have to get somebody to manage these properties now. That was before, and I didn't know the property management business existed. I'd never heard of it. But I learned fast. And I went out and got quotes for other people to manage the buildings. And I thought, oh, that's expensive. We could do this ourselves. So we did. We started managing those 2 buildings ourselves. And then I realized we could do this for other people. So we started offering the service to other people in Brooklyn. Again, that was 2004. That was 21 years ago. And there were very few property managers in Brooklyn. Brooklyn was not the juggernaut it is now, where, it's mostly rock stars and hedge fund folks buying into some of the more expensive neighborhoods now. Back then, it was less expensive and easier to get into the business, too. And so what I did is I underpriced the market, and we took off like a rocket because we're underpricing the market. We're charging less than other people. And the other thing I did is, because I didn't know much about the industry, I thought, well, where's the money? And I thought one of the places the money is in repairs. And so, which is a big part of managing a building. You got to fix things. And so from the very beginning, we were general contractors. We are handymen, sanitation people. We do a lot of that hands-on stuff, in addition to the less hands-on part, which is, financial management and compliance management, and people management is a big part of what we do too. So anyway, that's how I got here, and it's been 21 years. We're pretty deep in now. We're managing 130 buildings in, as you said, Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan. We have 25 employees. We have a number of businesses. It's a very challenging business. The book I haven't written yet about this business is A Million Little Details. It's a million little details, and it's very easy to miss one here and there. So what I try to do is try to set a good example, try to model good behavior, I'm a detail-oriented person, and so I'm a little OCD, so I'm a little able to keep up, and I try to help other people do that as well. That's mostly what I do these days, is I manage the finances of our company, and then the people that are involved, which are our team that works at the company. They are the clients, they are the people who live in buildings, the residents, and then there are the vendors. There's a lot of people involved.
Yeah. And you're not bored, clearly. 100.
That's what I say when we interview new team members. I say, you will never be bored here. You may be scared. You may be anxious because there's things you're not going to know. And sometimes people who really care, when they don't know something, they get a little nervous about it. But we support them. I mean, I hesitate to use the word family because some families are dysfunctional, but we are a group of people who work together who care. We care a lot about doing a good job. And for me, again, that means supporting the team to be able to do a good job.
Yeah. So the brownstone buildings that as is that the majority of the properties that you manage, or is it you
I
have a
wouldn't
much
say
broader
so.
range?
I wouldn't say so. So brownstones per se are 19th century townhouses. There's a lot of them in Brooklyn. Many New York City, many American cities have 19th century buildings that are still standing. What percentage of the portfolio? I don't know. Maybe 10 or 20% of the buildings are actual brownstones. The rest is all kinds of construction in New York City, and especially in neighborhoods like Brooklyn, boroughs like Brooklyn. It's been an enormous amount of building and development over the last few years. Everybody wants to live in Brooklyn. It's a hip place or whatever. It's become, as I said, pretty expensive now. But so no, not all the buildings are brownstones. We use the name because everybody knows what a brownstone is. You can see them in the background behind me. But they're beautiful buildings. They're large usually and sturdy, but there's all kinds of property here.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I know I stayed in Brownstone in Brooklyn when I was visited in New York. They are beautiful, but I just looked at and there was multiple levels of floors within this building and lots of maintenance issues around, I guess, as you said, repairs. And if you're wanting to fully restore one of those things, which is part of your business, managing that process, it looked like it would be a massive undertaking. I don't know if they have much of a concept of heritage protection for that type of building in New York, or is it they're not really considered heritage buildings?
It depends what neighborhood they're in, or what zone in the neighborhood. So you're talking about what's in New York City. It's called the Landmarks Commission, and
Okay.
certain blocks, certain zones in New York City are landmarks. Some buildings are landmarks. It's a very historic building. Then you can't like the White House or something. You can't change anything, except some people do. So it's the difference between a landmark building and a landmark district. So a landmark district is slightly different. But generally, if you're in either a building or a landmark district, you have to get permission from the Landmarks Commission to make changes. Like you want to change the kind of windows, or the color or anything like that. Anything that's visible from the street, you're going to need to get permission.
Okay. So we're particularly interested in environmental and waste management regulations, and in your business, you deal with sanitation, and as you do your renovations and repairs, you're having to come across with a multitude of different ones. How do you integrate those necessary regulations into your business management and renovation strategy?
Yes. So the overarching term, which covers what you're talking about here, is called compliance. So compliance means doing what the law requires. And there's a lot of laws. There's most pertinent ones here are New York City requirements and New York State requirements. So there's a lot of those. So I'll talk about two aspects of them. First of all, as to compliance per se, compliance with laws, the way we have to do it, because there's so much of it and it changes constantly. Every year there's new stuff that you got to pay attention to. We have a single individual in our company who does, his title is Director of Compliance. And what he does is he keeps track of all the things we're supposed to do, what the deadlines are and that sort of thing. Because we have 12 property managers, they can't all individually keep track of everything. So this Director of Compliance person, he tells them, Josh, your parapet needs to be inspected this year. Or, Alicia, your gas pipes need to be inspected this year. And, let's get those things done. So that's one way we keep track of things. Another way is we subscribe to a database service, which lets us know when deadlines are coming up and like violations attach. Without that service, if you get, let's say, a sanitation violation because you left the bag out when you weren't supposed to or whatever, it might be 2 weeks later that you finally get the violation notice from the city. By that point, it's too late. You need to fix it right away. If you don't, the city's going to increase the violation fee and bad things happen. So those are two ways we keep track of managing compliance within the company. Another thing that we do is we pay attention. So I go to seminars. I speak at some of them where they talk about, what you need to know. I recently went to an event where I spoke about the organization here is called Small Property Owners of New York, SPONY, all owners of smaller buildings. And what I spoke there about with two other colleagues was about what's called the FAIR Act, FARE. And what that involves, it's a real estate brokerage thing. And that involves the fact that one can no longer as of June of this year, have tenants pay the brokerage commission. So let's say, Alex, you wanted to rent an apartment in my building. The way it was before June is I would charge you a commission for getting you that apartment of about 1 month's rent, and that could be $3,000 to $6,000. It's a lot of money.
Mm.
So the state, and this goes to maybe something we'll talk about later, has decided state and the city is very tenant favorable and landlord unfavorable. That means that in the case of this commission thing, this Fair Act I was talking about, that now the landlord has to pay that commission to the broker because the broker can't work for free and you need a tenant, don't you? You landlord. So therefore, that's an example of a change that we keep track of by paying attention as best we can, going to events, that sort of thing. The other thing I want to touch on is waste management. In New York City, certainly historically, the current mayor, his name is a guy named Eric Adams. He's about to lose his job to another guy who's coming in January 1. What Eric Adams did during his tenure was try to deal with the rats. There's a lot of rats in New York City, and that's for all kinds of reasons. So one of the techniques that the Adams administration put in place is they said no longer can you put garbage bags on the curb because the rats tear open the garbage bags and make a mess, and it's bad.
Mm.
What you have to do now is you have to have garbage cans with a closing lid, and they have to be a certain size, and essentially you have to buy them from the city. That's a huge change. Suddenly, instead of using whatever, just putting the bag on the curb or buying whatever the plastic can you want, oh no. Now you have to buy the special can, and you have to have many of them. And so that's an example of managing waste management. So the law changes. We have to now say to all our clients, so sorry, we have to buy all new garbage cans for you. And you have to label them and all the nonsense you have to do. So again, this is what we do as property managers. We pay attention. We know what the law is so we can explain to our clients and do the right thing. And then we implement it. We go out and buy the garbage cans or whatever has to happen. So that's a simple example of how we manage waste management in New York City.
Yeah, it's a massive challenge in a city with the size of New York and the amount of waste it has to manage on a daily basis.
It's constant. It's never ending.
And the traffic, presumably, for trying to get the different trucks around to now pick up all those different garbage cans compared to what they used to do. That must have been a whole shift.
Thank you. Let me comment just a little further on that. Not only can you not bring the garbage bags out, now you have to pull the cans to the curb. The garbage people come, they empty them. Then somebody has to pull the cans back to the building. So, we provide a sanitation service to our clients. So it's one thing for the guy to go out, whatever, Sunday night for Monday morning pickup. Easy enough. But now you have to go back Monday and pull the can back. It's quite intensive, and we have to charge for that. So now it costs the landlord more. So it's a hassle here.
Yeah, I guess we've had that for years here. That's been the system, but it's much different in Australia. You've got, like 1% of your population in New York. And so I'm just interested in when you're talking about some of your renovations or even when you're doing repairs and you're having to rely on lots of different, I guess, technical data that you're looking at to compare different products and services, material performance, waste reduction metrics. And do you use any sort of advanced data analysis or to move beyond simple compliance and actively choose, say, the highest impact or the best options from, say, environmental outcomes?
Great question. Well, what jumps to mind there is lead requirements. So again, with older buildings, we talked about brownstones. Any buildings, I think, built before 1975, there's definitely lead on the walls because there was lead in paint. So now, if you're going to go and put a nail into the wall or scrape the wall, it's required that you observe certain lead avoidance techniques. Let me just take a drink. So, our handymen are EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, lead certified. What that means is that they have been schooled, they've taken training in how to properly address situations like that. So an example, if you're going to nail something into the wall and you understand that there's lead in the walls, you need to moisturize the wall so that the lead doesn't become airborne. So that's a simple example of how we try to address situations like that. With regard to data, you're asking about, I think, ways of evaluating product and choosing the right product. That's a great question. I wouldn't say we do. I think that many products, appliances are a simple example. The legal requirements are that the appliances announce how efficient they are, and that sort of thing. And so that's an example of how we pay attention to stuff like that. How much energy is it going to consume and whatnot. But otherwise, I wouldn't say we're using any kind of data-intensive way of evaluating products. It's a great question. It's not something I've really thought about.
And I'm assuming you're having to do a lot of reporting for all your different arms of your business to different regulators about compliance?
I think the local laws, I was mentioning law earlier, there's what's called local laws in New York City. A lot of them require reporting of all kinds. So an example of a simple example is bed bugs. If your building had bed bugs in the building within the last 12 months, whatever the period is, you're required every year for a few years thereafter to report that to the city. That's a simple example. Um,
Yeah.
when we talk about environmental stuff, there's a local law called Local Law 97, which requires that most buildings, the larger ones, over 25,000 square feet, meet strict greenhouse gas emissions caps. That started last year. So that's another example of a reporting requirement. I think that's on a 3-year cycle. So every 3 years you have to do the reporting. But yeah, there's otherwise you have to report what the level of emissions are from the building, which is you have to hire an engineer. It's a whole
Mm.
project to figure that out. But that's another fairly simple example of the kind of reporting requirements there are. Quite a lot here, yeah.
Yeah. And at the moment, I'm assuming you manage keeping on top of all your compliance activities by employing lots of people, which is great. But I'm interested in if you've explored any options for using AI to assist you with any of those types of regulation management, compliance management, or even, I guess, producing renovation reports or things for your clients to consider.
Another great question, and not really. I use AI all the time, and I can talk about that, but not for the purpose of keeping compliant. I think it's a brilliant comment. Because of all the compliance that's come to the fore, especially in the last few years, as I mentioned, based primarily on legislative agendas and the way the legislatures, both in the state and the city level, want things to be done. There's been a lot of increased level of compliance requirements, and I think a number of companies that have risen up to try to serve that need. But I think you've hit on a really smart idea, which I haven't even seen in this country, the idea of using AI per se to keep compliant. Really smart, Alex.
We do for our clients, actually. We can build a sort of a compliance workflow where it just automatically keeps on top of all the different regulations and how they're changing. And
I mean, yeah, keeping track of the regulations is one thing. There's implementing them and
yeah,
keeping on top of them per your particular kind of building. That
yeah,
that a generic source is not going to be enough. I mean, as I mentioned, there are companies that will do compliance for you, but learning our clientele from the way we know them, very hard to do, I would think. And for AI to do it without really digesting our portfolio, so to speak, I think that would be hard too. But I guess, of course, you could feed the portfolio into AI to let it help you.
yeah. I think you need to do that. Definitely, it needs to learn from your actual real information and data. But it's a really good way of short circuiting some stuff and giving you a chance to spend your resources and time on other things, making sure that you've got that confidence that that's happening in the background. But I guess it'd be interested in your thoughts about. You said you're already using AI for some things. Be interested in where you're using it.
I would say the overriding way I'm using it is to get smart fast. So I know things, but I don't know everything. I know, what is it? A little bit, a lot. And
Yeah.
so if you want to really go deep and have a better understanding of whatever the topic is, I'd find AI incredibly useful. It's like, give me a briefing, write me a page on this kind of dense topic that I don't really know much about. And to get a summary in seconds, it's like, wow. Other things that I do is I use it to write legal documents. So, I used to draft them from scratch, or I'd go find a form and modify it. But now I can say, give me a New York State limited power of attorney. Again, knocks it out in seconds. And of course, I edit it. I don't just take it and give it away. But
Yeah.
to get me up to speed fast like that, instead of having due respect to human beings, instead of paying another human being to give me a draft, AI can do it instantly. Other examples are company policies. So, we have a fair-sized employee manual here. There's all kinds of things that come up all the time that we have to explain to people about how to do the job. A simple example is standard operating procedures. So I've been doing this 20 years. I know how, I invented a lot of the ways we do things. So of course I know how to do it. But when I hire somebody, I realize like they don't know how to do it because it's like I haven't told them. So that's another simple example of, hey, AI, give me a write-up of how to, oh, I don't know, how to manage the server. That's a stupid example. How to repair a door. A simple kind of stupid example also. You can get an explanation of that. And if it's not exactly what you want, it's okay. It's a starting place. Instead of starting from scratch in format and content, incredibly useful. The final example I'll give you is answering service. So we're a 24/7 company, meaning if Christmas Eve your pipe is leaking, you need the pipe fixed. So
Yeah.
We currently use a human answering service. So 24/7, round the clock, a human being is going to pick up the phone and say, "Hi, Alex, what's going on?" And you'll talk to them. And if it's a real emergency, that human being who answered the phone will get the handyman to your building to fix the pipe, whatever it is. So I've seen a number of companies now offering, particularly in our space, but across the industries, I'm sure, robotic answering services. So, and you can load them. It's much more than just a tape. It's not just, "Hi, this is Brownstone, leave a message." It's not that. It's, "What do you need, Alex? You need to know our address. Do you have an emergency?" And then, of course, the AI can talk to you in the way that it does that. We haven't gone there. We've been offered it a lot. We thought about it. One of the concerns, well, my personal concern is I don't like talking to robots. I really prefer
Mm.
talking to human beings because Alex will understand the nuance in what I'm saying to her way better than a machine will. And, she'll sense that I'm unhappy or whatever she's thinking. So that's one of the reasons we haven't gone there. But I can see that that kind of thing is coming for sure. Another simple way that we've considered using that is on the brokerage side. So we're offering an apartment for rent, let's say, and the questions might be really repetitive. The question might be, "Where can I get an application?" Or, "What's the square footage?" or whatever. And that's the kind of thing that I could certainly imagine robots helping with. What we'll do now is we build a web page based on the new rental or whatever it is. So that's a way. But let's say, I don't know, you're not familiar with how to use our platform. I can see the value of being able to talk to a robot, so to speak, that will answer your questions in a voice. So I can imagine going there, but we're not there today.
Yeah, yeah. I think they're good examples, I think, of certainly how you could envisage using them in the future, and you can definitely, from my experience, train your robot so it sounds like you, and give it increasingly sophisticated understanding about your voice and your business and your culture, and allow it sort of escalation pathways. So eventually it can answer 90% of all the repetitive, boring, tedious administrative questions, and then leave your staff to just answer the really complex ones, or ones where they actually need a real person to make a difference to solving a client's problems or issues. So it's changing every day, all this technology. So it's fascinating to see where it's going, and how different people are using it, and the sorts of issues and constraints that people are concerned about with using it as well, which is just as genuine and legitimate as people, jumping straight into the deep end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What you're making me think about while I'm listening to you and I'm looking at you is I'm thinking, could robots do this? And I'm thinking, well, Alex Rankin is a person, and I get what I get from talking to her, and I don't think I could get that from a robot. I mean, of course you could like inject personality, shall we say, into a robot, but I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think it could be as interesting as you are. You know what I mean? Well,
um,
it's interesting, of course, is how it's going to change industries in terms of what people do. What we're doing right now, talking to two people talking, I think we humans find humans interesting, and so that'll
mm,
never go away. But I think it is obvious also that a number of things that humans have been doing. An example is the drafting of the legal documents. You don't really need a person to do that. You need a
yeah.
person to customize it to make sure it's really what I want, nuance on it, but there's plenty of activity, it seems to me, that robots can do, and I think that's going to change everything.
Yeah, I guess some of the ways I use it as well as, and I've found you're right that it's not just a ask it to write something and take it. I spend a lot of time going backwards and forwards with my various chat GPTs that I use, and I've trained them on myself and my background and my interests and issues. And so we have often a bit of a debate, and I say, no, I don't like that. That's not a deep enough answer for me, or you've just been very simplistic there, and ask it to go back and do another version of things. So it's good to have that experience of forcing you to be a bit more clear about what you're looking for, but also taking responsibility for the products that are coming out, and not just saying, I'll just take any garbage that it spits out and say that's 100% right, and I'm just going to go and use it. That's that whole combination of the human plus the robot side of things that I think is fascinating.
Yeah, for sure. That's where we're moving for sure. And the other thing it makes me think about is it makes us aware of what makes us human, and we see the
Mm,
distinction between what robots and humans are all about. And
mm,
you just talked about whether you or the robot likes the tone of the message or whatever the document is or whatever. That's something we were talking about this morning, whether, the reason, and we don't need to get into the relationship bit, but the reason that people do digital girlfriends or whatever is what's amazing to me about that is that they get a sense of emoting from the robot, really. But I get what you're saying, that you can essentially train the AI to understand who you are as a human being, and therefore, I guess there is some dynamic, some emotional dynamic that happens, which I frankly haven't experienced that much because I've been using it kind of transactionally. Write this
Mm.
document for me or do this. I haven't gotten involved, and obviously other people have. But initiate that. It's like, oh, are you sad? It's like, wow, does that happen? I guess it does.
You can train them to do that, yes. Yeah, but obviously not as well as people do it.
Yeah, I
Just being
mean,
able to.
I'm intuitively, able to sense as you are other people, and I guess the robots have some capability, but they'll never be like you and me, Alex.
No, no, that's true. Josh, if you could wave a magic wand, and that would really, I guess, tackle one of your main pain points or really accelerate the trajectory of what you're trying to do with Brownstone Property Group, what would you tackle and what would you try to magic away?
Well, I deal with that all the time. I'm trying to make the company more efficient and trying to make us grow in a productive way. Magic wand. Well, I would ask that condominiums stop making or clients in general stop making decisions strictly based on price. It's the universal reason when we don't get a client. We get tons of leads here. I did
Mm,
very good search engine optimization 20 years ago, and so leads flow into this company. We don't close them at nearly the rate that they come in, and that is primarily due to price. Because when we started 20 years ago and I was underpricing the market, we were one of very few property managers in Brooklyn. Now there's lots, and so there's a
mm,
lot of competition, including from some AI-based companies. And so the thing about property management is the way we do it is it's a human being based business, and people in New York City in particular are expensive. And
mm.
we do have some offshore people too, but we have to have people here. It's the kind of business where you have to go to the building. You can't do that without being here. And so if I could wave the magic wand, I would be able to really get people to understand the value of what we do. We're very good at what we do. We care. And there's a cost to that. We have to make a living. If we don't run the business profitably, then we can't survive. And so that requires clients to pay the fee that's reasonable. And we don't want to overcharge them. We're generally charging market prices, but it would be great if people could really understand that if you hire the under market person who is not going to do a good job, it's going to cost you in the long run. I just had a conversation before we got on where I was talking with a prospective client. It's a small condo here in Brooklyn. And I was saying, are you aware of what a tax protest is? And she had no idea. Tax protest is every year in New York City, the tax assessment is raised every year. And that means your taxes raise every year. So what a tax protest is, you hire a lawyer to go and say to the tax court, Your Honor, my situated neighbor is paying less tax than my client, and therefore, Your Honor, can you please lower the assessment? And if they do, the tax lawyer will get a portion of the reduction. So the person I was speaking to had no idea what that was. And so because our manager had not told her and wasn't aware. And so that means every year she's been paying more tax than she needs to. So that's expensive. So that's a simple example of knowing how to do the job well and executing and doing it well. Of course, there's a cost to that, but there's higher costs to not doing the right thing. I remember, just kind of a side analogy kind of to this is, education's expensive, but lack of education is more expensive.
Mm. I just wanted to say thank you again for jumping on board and being willing to talk to us. Could talk to you for hours yet. I think your insights and your experience there in a very people-oriented business that has also got a massive range of complexity of constantly changing regulations and compliance requirements that you're having to meet in a very different environment to what we have here in Australia, but there's still lots of similarities, I think, with what property investors and developers and property managers here have to deal with as well. So I'm sure it'd be incredibly useful and interesting for people to listen to. So thank you for those insights, and I've really enjoyed talking to you and appreciate you sharing your wisdom there.
Thank you, Alex. Well, I've also enjoyed it. It's like I've learned things from you. The idea, so there's some ideas that have flown here, which I really find fascinating. So I really appreciate the opportunity. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak with you.
Thanks again, Josh. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.